Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal 2, the rematch, has seemingly been verbally agreed to by everyone who needs to verbally agree to a fight in the UFC nowadays. Dana White has came out and said that he wants to see the fight if there is enough fan demand, and obviously with Jorge Masvidal's name involved, there's going to be the fan demand there. Jorge Masvidal said that he wants to fight, he wants it on full camp. Usman called out Masvidal after his win against Gilbert Burns and said that he wants the rematch to happen, just so Masvidal doesn't have the excuse of a short notice camp, and that's why Usman beat him, which is the narrative that Masvidal's going to go with, and we'll talk about that in a second. I thought in this video today I'd go through my early prediction and breakdown of the fight, and also talk about the fight being made in general in the second half of this video, because I'm not too happy about this one, and I'll explain why after I give my prediction. Now, spoiler alert, Usman's going to beat him. I feel like Usman beats Masvidal 9 out of 10 times. There is a chance, mate, hang on. Let me tile, it's MMA. Let me dial that back a little bit, okay? We're seeing more and more upsets. I think Usman beats Masvidal 7.5 times out of 10. I really do believe that. I think Usman showed that in his last bout, and I know that there's always going to be the narrative that Masvidal took it on short notice. But the same people who predicted Masvidal on short notice by using the reason for their prediction being that he's been training the whole time anyway, and now saying, he'll be training this time in the rematch if they're going to be picking Masvidal again. I don't think it's logical to pick Masvidal, because as we know, Poirier came out and said that Masvidal was training hard for a fight in case anything happened to Usman versus Burns. Masvidal came out and said it as well. He was always posting pictures of him training with great wrestlers in preparation, just teasing the idea that he will be ready for anyone who falls out. He also stepped in, and the weight cut is obviously going to be a problem, and he would rather know when he's going to have to make weight and if he's going to be fighting 100% before he does. I just don't see there being that much of a difference with Jorge Masvidal in a rematch with Usman. I think the style showed itself on that night. Masvidal had a good training camp. He didn't have terrible cardio because he went 5 rounds with Usman defending takedowns. That's not someone who's rolled off the couch and then just signed a fight on 6 days' notice. He defended and scrambled with Usman in the grappling exchanges and didn't get beaten up that badly for 5 rounds, and that's because of how much energy he was exerting to get out of those positions and get himself to safer positions against the cage where Usman's only going to stomp at his toes. The only thing that hurt after Masvidal's fight with Usman was his ego and his toes. That's a fact. So Masvidal had the cardio to at least avoid damage and not gas out and get finished like we've seen so many other fighters do before. I believe he was ready for the fight. I also said first before anyone else, I feel like, as soon as he priced himself out of a fight, I said he's going to look to take it on short notice. As soon as he said that he'll be like there for short notice or like something like that, and he pulled himself out of the fight and said that he didn't get enough money to fight with Usman, I thought, you know what, he's going to wait on short notice. He's going to try and get the fight on short notice, which means they're going to be relying on him heavily to step up for the first fight on Fight Island, and he's going to get his negotiating way and get the money that he wants on short notice. But the short notice thing is going to be used as an excuse moving forward. I said that before it ever happened. Masvidal was going to use the short notice thing as an excuse. It was his crutch going into the entire thing. It was 6 days notice. That was always going to be something that he could fall back on if things didn't go his way against Kamaru Usman. The weight cut is obviously going to be a little bit better for Masvidal nowadays, and maybe he'll be in a little bit of better shape, but I still don't see the difference being that much to say that he now goes out there and beats Kamaru Usman. So I would pick Usman to beat him by decision again. I like Masvidal's survivability. I really do. He's really hard to finish. Only been finished twice in his career. Once by an inverted triangle where he went out cold. Another time he got dropped by a punch. And that was it. Genuinely, that was it. He got dropped by a punch. He was fine on the ground. The referee stepped in after he got dropped, and the fight was called off. He's very, very, very difficult to finish. We've seen that many times in Masvidal's career, and I don't see Usman getting the job done against him by finish. That's one thing I don't see, because Gilbert Burns kind of threw the kitchen sink at Usman in the first round. Watching back that fight, when I watched it on silent and I was watching it live, I was thinking, man, Burns' cardio is really deteriorating here. But then I watch it back, and I hear Burns making his noise, and I hear those punches coming. Gilbert Burns was swinging everything into those early shots against Usman, and I think that's mainly one of the big reasons that he slowed down so much. Also, he took a lot of kicks to the leg while he was laying on his back. I think that would be a problem as well. Usman did very well. I don't see him swarming Masvidal and finishing him in a fight, because Masvidal's just so good at surviving. He's got a great chin. He's not been dusted by Dan Hooker before like Gilbert Burns was. Masvidal's always had a really good chin. He's got really good recovery as well. He's near impossible to submit because he's such a veteran. I mean, he had like a closer to a prime Damian Maia than any of these other guys at the top of welterweight right now on his back for 3 rounds, and he survived it. Jorge Masvidal's really hard to finish, but I think Usman would win by holding him up against the cage and stomping on his toes and shoulder bashing him and punching him in the body. Like, people who now think that Usman's not going to fight the way he fights and is going to be more exciting, I think you're in for a rude awakening when you see this rematch. It's very obvious that Usman is purely changing himself based on the style of his opponent right now. Gilbert Burns is great at grappling. Burns was priding himself before the fight on how Usman knows that he'll submit him if he goes to the ground, and Usman didn't want anything to do with the ground game. Neither did he with Damian Maia anyway. He waited for Maia's mistakes with his own takedowns to get any kind of control time whatsoever. Like, Usman has a very good game plan in fights, okay? He takes the path of least resistance every single time. And if he's fighting a striker like Masvidal, he's going to hold him against the cage and push him up and stomp on his toes. And maybe they'll be a little bit better in the intervals where they're not against the cage, and Usman will be a little bit better at the striking there because of moving over to Trevor Whitman. He has improved somewhat in his striking, which I think is just against Masvidal's chances once more. I think if they're against the cage, Usman's obviously going to be able to manipulate him, in my opinion, and make him work and make him hustle and make him tired against the cage and constantly outwork him in the grappling. He's stronger than Masvidal. He's bigger than Masvidal. Masvidal is getting older right now. I don't know how old Masvidal is exactly. I believe he is 35. But damn. No, he's not even. He's 37. He's 36, coming up to 37 years of age, sorry. Please tell me I'm correct in saying that real quick. He's 36, soon to be 37 in November. Those are not good years to take off from the fight game and try and evolve. Like, Usman's even getting to a point in his own age. I think he's 33 right now. Getting to a point in age where he's got to kind of get his legacy in now, because once you get to 36, 37, that seems to be the age where, unless you're Glover Teixeira, things start to get a little bit tricky for you, okay? So I'm just saying, Masvidal's not had a great year here where he's going to reinvent himself and be better than ever. I think he's somewhat maintaining his status of fighting ability right now, rather than improving and adding new stuff to his game. And I think Usman would beat him again just by holding him up against the cage. And in the middle of all of that, when they're not against the cage, Usman's stand-up is improving more rapidly, because it was at the start of this fight between them, when they first fought, Usman's stand-up had a much longer way to go than Masvidal's did, so he always has the improvement advantage over Masvidal. And I think he would beat him again. And I think he would handle him a little bit easier and maybe win all 5 rounds this time. Last time I saw Usman fight Masvidal and that was announced, I said that Usman would beat him 4 rounds to 1, unanimous decision. The first round would be close. Maybe Masvidal would win it, but the rest of the rounds would all be Kamaru Usman. I'll stick with the same prediction, but unless this time, at least this time, I'll say that Usman probably beats him in the first round as well. I'll say 5-0 Usman, 10-9s, and you know what? 10-8 maybe. 10-8 in the later rounds this time. I think it'll be a little bit more dominant, because as much as people like to use the excuse of he took it on short notice, well, Usman took Masvidal on short notice. Like that, he was fighting Gilbert Burns before. He switched up to Masvidal on 6 days' notice. A wild guy that got a flying knee in the first round. I'm sure there was a lot of playing on Usman's mind in that bout as well. Am I going to lose to Masvidal stepping in on 6 days' notice? Is it going to be my worst nightmare come to life? The worst case scenario of anything happening? Masvidal comes in and beats me, and it's on 6 days' notice, and I have no excuse. It's a very tough situation to be in, and Usman still went out there and beat him. I think if you give Usman all this time to prepare for Masvidal and game plan an idea to beat him properly, I think he'll do it more impressively. Usman wins 5 rounds to none. Maybe some 10-8s in the later 2 rounds, maybe. Who knows? But I don't see Masvidal winning it at this point in his career. I just don't like the idea that the fight is happening, I'll tell you. This is the next segment of the video. I fucking hate this fight being made. I think it's just an absolute fuck you to everyone who knows anything about MMA. There's no way Jorge Masvidal has earned a rematch with Usman. Whittaker lost to Adesanya, okay? He lost to Adesanya. He beat Darren Till, who was top 5 at the time. Jared Cannonier, who was top 3 or 2 at the time. I think it might have been 1 versus 2 at that point, or maybe Costa was number 2. No, top 3 Jared Cannonier at the time, beat him. Now he has to fight Paulo Costa, who's top 2, number 2 in the division, and he still might not get a belt for it. He won't get a belt against Costa. That's not for a title. Whittaker has lost to Adesanya, and he's going to have to win 3 non-title bouts before even getting a chance at a belt again. Interim or actual middleweight belts. And Jorge Masvidal loses to Usman, and now he's earned his rematch. Masvidal lost 4 rounds to 1 against Usman, had a training session with Jake Paul, And that was enough to earn him his rematch against Usman. Above the winner of Covington versus Edwards. Above Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, who beat Masvidal, but is ranked below him. How does that make sense? Thompson has more wins inside the rankings than Masvidal right now. The only win Masvidal has inside the welterweight rankings as we speak is Michael Chiesa from lightweight years ago. Stephen Thompson has beaten Luke and Jeff Neal 10 and 11 in the division. How does this make any sense, the fact that Wonderboy is at number 5? I know he lost to Pettis, and Masvidal beat Diaz, who beat Pettis. But Thompson has proven that he's better than Masvidal. In my opinion, what should happen in the welterweight division right now is Usman should take on the winner of Covington versus Edwards. I know Covington doesn't want to make that fight happen because he's number 1 right now in the welterweight division. He feels like he should get a title shot above Masvidal, which why shouldn't he? That's the only guy who can beat Usman. Even an Usman diehard fan will tell you that. Someone who hates Covington, maybe, will tell you that Covington's the only guy at welterweight who has any kind of chance of beating Usman right now after we saw what he did to Gilbert Burns. No? Wonderboy may be a close second, but he'll get taken down and controlled. The only guy who can beat Usman at welterweight is Covington, and I think he loses. But I'd rather see that for the anticipation of maybe there's a chance Usman loses, rather than Masvidal showing up on a week's notice and getting held against the cage for 5 rounds because he didn't have the level of grappling for Usman to respect, so he strikes with him and gives him a chance. You're just going to grapple him, and I'll grapple him. I don't understand why they're making the fight, you know? Thompson should... Here's what should happen. Usman fights the winner of Covington Edwards. No, he doesn't even. He doesn't even. Here's what fucking happens. Covington fights Masvidal on The Ultimate Fighter and saves that show's life, okay? Saves that show's life and brings it back to the mainstream with how big that fight is. Because I've done polls and I had like 1.8k votes and 70% of them or 60% of them were saying that they wanted Covington versus Masvidal on TUF. It's by far the most popular demanded one for The Ultimate Fighter. Covington versus Masvidal. Here's what you do also. Masvidal gets moved lower than Stephen Thompson in the rankings. That's what you also do. You do maybe... fuck off Leon Edwards! You do Leon Edwards versus Stephen Thompson and... I don't even fucking know what you do at welterweight, man. I don't know what you do at welterweight anymore. I really don't. Maybe just give Leon Edwards a title shot. I don't mind. I know he wants to fight, but maybe do him versus... But Chiesa's not going to step up and fight either, so... Thompson versus Edwards at the end of April. The winner of that one gets the belt. And then you do Covington versus Masvidal in the summer and just hold that up a little bit longer so we can have that fight happen. Or you just give Covington the title shot right now and you do Masvidal versus Edwards. Why not? But Masvidal won't take that fight because Edwards is a good fighter, which means he's not worthy of fighting Masvidal. Only guys with near negative records are worthy of fighting the BMF. It's just, I'm sick of this whole fucking charade. My beloved sport of MMA. A fucking shambles because of Masvidal. It's pissing me off. Really is. How does he get a title shot coming off a loss? There's no excitement for that. I did a poll. Let me find my poll right now. I'm spitting here. I did a poll. I said, after the win at 258, Usman versus Burns, who do you want to see Kamaru Usman defend against next? The votes were, out of 4 options, 1.5 thousand votes. Wait for the winner of Covington versus Edwards got 49%. The Jorge Masvidal rematch option got 18%. Stephen Thompson got 23%. And the winner of Whittaker versus Costa for the interim or vacant middleweight belt got 10%. Which I think is also a decent idea for Usman if he wants to go up and do what GSP did and try and beat his legacy. But, yeah, fuck that dumb shit. I don't want to see the fight, but Masvidal will lose. And anyone who says otherwise just isn't paying attention to the styles. He loses that bout, and he was training the first time, but he just, I guess, had to rush a weight cut. This time, he's not going to have to rush a weight cut, but he's still going to get held against a cage, in my opinion, and he's only getting older. 37 years of age now. Even Tony Ferguson fell off at 37. This ain't light heavyweight, you know? Like and subscribe, click that button up there. Usman by decision, 5 rounds to none. Maybe some 10-8s in there as well. Goodbye. I'll see you later. Toodle pip.